Now joining me is the aforementioned Bjorn Lomborg, president of Copenhagen Consensus and visiting fellow at the Hoover Institution. Thank you, Bjorn. We've been missing you, but we've been reading your tweets. Did I get this right? You know, this is a tough math to figure out, these kinds of decimal places. But basically, there is no noticeable impact on the climate. And for that, we're spending $1 trillion and taxing $1 trillion and damaging wages and the rest of it. Tell us more, would you please? Because this is off the charts, unbelievable.
You're absolutely right. So look, it's odd that we are passing something. So the spending bill just for the climate bit is estimated at $369 billion. And nobody's saying, well, how much will that actually do? A lot of people are saying, oh, it'll cut more than we've ever cut before. And that's possibly true. But if you look at the estimates out there, we have reasonable estimates. We don't really know, but we have reasonable estimates. Why don't we take those estimates and plug them in to the UN climate model? It's not rocket science. I was on vacation. I did it in an afternoon. Everyone can do this. And the simple point is, if you plug in all of the savings that the U.S. will do from its carbon emissions over the next about 80 years, if you say we're only going to cut as long as there's money, so when the money runs out in 2030, we're not going to cut anymore, then you get the pessimistic estimate, and that was the one that you said it's less than 1,000th of a degree Fahrenheit. That's just nothing. But even if you assume, no, we're going to keep cutting emissions more and more all the way through the century, even if you do that, you're only going to get less than 3/100th of a degree by the end of the century. We will not be able to measure that. And that's important to say. You're spending $369 billion and you won't be able to measure the impact. Maybe we should have known that, and maybe people would have voted differently had they known.
That's a key point. That is a totally key point. Thank you for that. I mean, there has to be some cost-benefit analysis in both ways, Bjorn. Cost-benefit analysis with respect to the climate impact of these policy actions, and then, frankly, cost-benefit analysis with respect to the economic impact of these policies, because that's not in there either. I mean, the Congressional Budget Office hadn't even done that, which is bad enough. No. Now, let's see. There should be, this is the United Nations climate model. That's what you use. Why don't we have, you know, some kind of congressional environmental review, like an impartial group, maybe like the CBO, maybe inside the CBO, okay, that would measure these kinds of things? Because these House members and these Senate members, they're going blind. It sounds great. It sounds wonderful. You're pouring $400 billion or whatnot into this thing, and it's going to help reduce carbon, but they don't know that. I mean, shouldn't there be a separate agency, independent, nonpartisan, et cetera, to evaluate this stuff?
Yes, but perhaps even more obvious. Shouldn't we just be asking New York Times and Biden and everybody else to say, look, if you have another number, if you believe that you can come up with a bigger number of reduction in temperature, please give it. The reason why you're not hearing it is, of course, because everyone knows this is roughly the number. Sure, look, there is no precise estimate of these temperatures, but it's going to be minuscule. That's why nobody's mentioning it. And that's why it's so important to get out there. And also, Larry, just very briefly, for two other reasons. Partly because, you know, we keep being told that green energy is now cheaper than fossil fuels, but that's really only true when the wind is blowing or the sun is shining. The reality is we have to spend $369 billion to bribe people to buy more electric cars and to buy this inefficient, this unreliable solar and wind. And secondly, it also shows the rest of the world. Remember, this is not mostly about what the US or the Europeans do. This is about what happens in Asia and Africa for the rest of the century. We're essentially telling them we have to pass a bill of $369 billion and it'll do virtually nothing for climate. Would you guys please do a lot more of the same sort of stuff? Of course, they're not going to be able to do that. They don't want to do that. They have other priorities. We need to recognize if we want to fix climate change, we're not going to do it by making incredibly expensive but almost worthless climate legislation.
I mean, if we open the spigots and we exported massive amounts of LNG to Asia and Africa, for example. Wouldn't that do more to reduce the carbon imprint around the world's globe?
Absolutely, in the first couple of decades. And again, this is about realizing, yes, we should ideally in the long run find a way to get everybody off fossil fuels. But in the short run, you're not going to do that. So you should get people to switch from coal to gas. Now, I get that why the U.S. would love to export this to everyone. It's probably reasonable to say we should get everybody fracking so that they could actually replace a lot of it themselves. But that's sort of a distributional issue. But the fundamental point is, yes, find the smart ways, but smart means stuff that people actually want to buy. You know, you didn't have to subsidize much of the fracking revolution. You had to do some R&D in the beginning, but then it just took over because it actually makes money. We should do the same thing in China, in India, in Africa. That would reduce carbon emissions much more. Oh, and also make people much better off, both economically, but also materially. We could, stop having people burn, wood or dung or cardboard, whatever, to cook and keep warm indoors, which is more than 3 billion people who are doing that right now. If we could get them on LNG, they would be much better off, they would die much less, and they'd be more productive.
I mean, look at, I don't want to put you on the spot politically, but I just want to raise this point. President Biden said during the campaign and since that his goal is to eliminate fossil fuels. Eliminate fossil fuels, okay? What would that do? I mean, if somebody could somehow price that out, cost that out, give me a climate, give me an environmental review of that, well, I mean, what would that do, honestly?
It would be fantastically expensive. Remember, everything you like about civilization is powered by lots and lots of energy. Most of that energy today comes from fossil fuels. Of course, you can buy your way out of this. So rich countries can, in principle, do this. It would probably cost, $2 trillion or more per year for the U.S. Globally, this would cost more than $5 trillion per year. But it's 5% of GDP. It's certainly more than most people are willing to pay, but we could pay for it. But we're not going to. Remember, it took, 30 years to get the U.S. to kind of suggest that they want to spend $369 billion in climate. You're never going to get anyone to be voted into Congress continuously for spending more than, $1 trillion every year for the U.S. There's one model that showed by 2050, going net zero would cost more than $10,000 per person per year. Nobody's going to vote for that.
So, Bjorn, last one. It's been about 50 years since I had a graduate quant class. So you got to help us again. The optimum scenario, how much would the reduction be?
So, look, if you look at just so Nordhaus, the economic professor from Yale University, actually did an estimate of what would be the optimal carbon tax. Globally, he found that we should have a carbon tax, but it wouldn't reduce emissions very much. So you've got to remember, you're not going to solve global warming through a carbon tax. We've certainly seen that in the U.S. You're going to solve this through innovation.
Yes.
When we get fracking going everywhere, we reduce it somewhat. When we get fourth generation nuclear and lots of other ideas to be cost competitive and cheaper than fossil fuels, they'll outcompete fossil fuels and we'll both have more energy cheaper. That's how you solve global warming, just like you solve everything else.
So this one's 28,000th of 1 degree Fahrenheit, and the pessim is 9/10,000th of 1 degree Fahrenheit. I don't know. I don't like those odds, Bjorn Lomborg. I don't think those are good odds, but we appreciate your work. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.